Hello and welcome to the Blue Pencil Sessions. This is where we at the Creative Academy take a look through some of your pages and offer you our opinions. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. I'm Eileen and I'm here today with my two colleagues, Crystal and Donna, the ladies, and we are having the opportunity to take another peek at Elissa's work, and we are going to dive into that. And I'm going to start us off, if that's all right, ladies. And the two things that I wanted to hit actually are at the very start. So I think that's a good place to begin. So you initially have, while the engineers assessed the stability of the mine shafts, Sagaris and Zarina were reassigned to unloading the carts of ore. I would actually just open with a line that has a little bit more, for lack of a better term, texture or feel to it. So I would actually open with, after so many long days below ground, it felt foreign to be out under the midday sun. And then put the line about the engineers. And that is such a weird and small thing, so feel free completely to ignore that. I was the only one who bumped on that, but I wanted to sort of open with a strong sort of sense of feeling. And I think that that actually kind of connects well to the other comment that I was going to make, which was around sometimes feeling like there was almost information. Or an info dump. So again, talking like kind of opening with the engineers almost felt that way to me. But where it did show up more is in kind of the second paragraph. So where we have basically the driver begins to help unload the ore. And there's the line, unloading ore was a task for lower status slaves, and the higher status cart drivers were not required to do the backbreaking work. So it feels like we're in the middle of the scene, and then there's all of a sudden this just small little comment on how things work within the society. And I think you can just take us deeper into her point of view by just pulling up a little bit into that paragraph, because we see Zarina making conversation with the cart driver. So if Sagaris was to have a thought like, leave it to Zarina, she can charm anybody. As soon as she talks to him, then he, who doesn't have any reason to have to do this, is the first person to start unloading. Then it just takes us into that story, and we're still getting that same piece of information, but it's coming to us filtered through the character. And the second place that this shows up is later, where Sagaris asks her sister, do you know how Mother died? Of course, she was injured in battle, Zarina frowned. So that just runs a little bit of the risk. I think by having the frown there, you were trying to show that Zarina was a little bit confused about why Sagaris was asking her that. But I might just make that a little bit more clear so it doesn't have the feel of feeling like, you know how Mother died, where you would be like, yeah, I do know how Mother died. Why are you asking me such a weird question? So if she asks the question and we really clearly get that Zarina is confused and then says, of course, she was injured in battle, where she has maybe the feeling that she's about to get a piece of information she didn't expect. But what I did love was the emotion. So I'm curious for you two. Crystal, why don't you go first? What kinds of things were sticking out for you?
I actually had highlighted the same section around the info feeling with the cart stuff. So that was something to catch my eye as well. And I did enjoy the relationship stuff, and it is really interesting to see these sisters kind of growing and changing, and that was really valuable. The one thing that popped out that just seems like an opportunity is at the end when they're talking about their aunt and sort of her relationship to their mother, and you know how it all came together in her death. No spoilers, but one thing I wondered about is in a lot of sort of indigenous cultures, you refer to someone as auntie, and that is both a measure of respect for a certain sort of type of person within the community, but also a family relationship as well. And so I just had a question around, is it aunt all the way through the book? Or Donna had a really good suggestion that if one of the girls is calling her aunt and one is calling her auntie, or if they're using those two different names in different places in the story, that would be an interesting opportunity to show their emotion or how they're feeling about her. So if they're, unaware that she played a role in their mother's death or whatever, then maybe the affectionate auntie is being used, whereas it's a formal aunt if they're sort of upset or disapproving or feeling like some negative emotions. So it just seemed like an opportunity to use that to kind of emphasize really subtly some of those things. So again, not at all required, and it totally depends how you've set up your world and your community for your characters, but just an observation.
And I think that's an interesting thing, because one of the things that I loved about this piece was the growth that we see Sagaris going through, where she is opening herself up and taking some real vulnerabilities, but that can lead to some confusion. And that was an issue for you, Donna. Did you want to talk about that?
So I want to start by my very first comment on my comments here is, and I'm teary. So by the bottom of the first page, I am starting to feel like, Lean's mentioned a couple times this emotion. The emotion is definitely in this scene. And so, you know, when Zarina embraced her sister tightly, which, and they sat in silence with Zarina stroking Sagaris's head. That was really a lovely, lovely little snippet there. Where I got, I marked, you know, do you know how mother died? I was thinking a little bit too expository, but I got confused a couple of times around point of view. So the first place where I got confused here is a pregnant silence stretch between them. Zarina seemed to sense her sister needed space to speak and didn't fill the silence with her normal chit-chat. But the scene is in Sagaris's point of view. So that one stopped me and actually made me go back to say, wait a minute, is this scene actually in Zarina's point of view? And then I didn't know who was saying she was angry. So I was so angry when she died, and it wasn't clear to me, because was it Zarina or Sagaris who was saying that? And I don't know if you need the tag anyway, because we didn't know what the secret was, and that Sagaris had this secret. A little bit later, I was confused again. Sagaris paused, searching for the words. She could do this. She could find the words. And the next words aren't actually spoken by Sagaris. They're spoken by Zarina. So again, I just bumped on that a little bit. And these are tiny, tiny little things, because by the end, I'm still feeling a lot of emotion. Zarina looked so down into, as the words left her, Sagaris realized she was ready to stop blaming herself for her brother's death. She had not been a perfect sister, but his death was not her fault. Zarina looked at her empathetically, giving her time to find the next words. So then it seems like we're back to Zarina's point of view. Anyway, so those were the little places where, and I may be wrong, I may be totally wrong, but that's what my brain was doing while I was reading this. And at the very end, the very last words, and together they cried, and I was back to feeling that emotion with them. So there's no fail in here. There's just a bit of Donna getting confused.
Well, and I think the strongest one for me with the point of view was where she is trying to find the words, and then the next person who speaks is Zarina. On the earlier one where it's Zarina seemed to sense her sister needed space, I think you can just ground that more firmly as Sagaris's point of view. Is Sagaris could tell that Zarina knew she needed space, and didn't feel the thing with her normal chit chat. Because I think you are trying to make it clear that we're Sagaris, but I think the confusion comes because we are seeing Sagaris move emotionally towards where Zarina was. Whereas I think,
that's what it is. That used to be there, like from the deep point of view, it used to be really clear who was speaking because they were so different. And now we're seeing Sagaris moving over towards Zarina and becoming, less harsh. That's exactly what it is.
And I think Zarina also moving a little bit over in terms of this has made her grow up in some ways and make her see the world as a harsher place. And I think she has a much bigger appreciation for what her sister has taken on. So I love that they're moving that kind of closeness together. I think that works really well. But then just making sure, because you do run the risk that the reader's like, wait, she's having deep emotional thoughts. We must be in Zarina's point of view, is just making it sure something like, Sagaris could tell Zarina was trying to give her space. And that just changes that line, and it works really well from that point on. So it's small changes, but it works. And I also teared up. I loved that we're having this emotional moment with them. So any other last thoughts?
Only you could add a tiny bit more physical nudges. So like as a way to also clarify who's speaking, and to give us a little bit, because they've been the whole scene almost, they're sitting in the shade, so they haven't moved. But even if she's like nudging her toe in the sand or whatever, like if you have something physical would help, you could attach that to one of the characters whenever we needed a little reminder of who it was that was that point of view person. Because, you know, if you're staring at your feet or whatever, then it lets you know whose eyes we're looking out of. So that could be another way to sort of address that, which would work. But
Plus, we love to see the scene, and anytime you can give us those physical body movements, it just makes it that much more clear. So we love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for turning in these pages. Maybe we'll get another installment, fingers crossed. And for everyone else, we would love to see your pages. You just submit those to the blue pencil and we'll give you our thoughts. Or if you have a query and synopsis, we'd be happy to take a peek at that in our red pencil session. And until then, we'll see you guys around the Academy. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.